All right, we've got a lot to talk about. 49ers have wrapped up their Thursday practice. It's the longest one of the week. And both Jauan Jennings and Trent Williams, although they did not formally practice, kind of like Christian McCaffrey last Friday, DNP, did not participate. Both were spotted working off on the side. Trent Williams reportedly with his helmet on, which is a good sign, and Jauan Jennings without the helmet. We know that Trent's been managing a little bit of a knee issue that seemed to flare up during the game against Seattle to open the season where he wasn't at his best. And we know that Jauan Jennings exited that game with a shoulder injury. However, the imaging came back positive on Jauan Jennings' shoulder. There has been a chance throughout this whole week that he'd be ready to go for Sunday. And the fact that he's out there on the side during practice instead of being back in the treatment room, we really have to parse these injury things. There's a reason why, there's more than one reason why I knew that Christian McCaffrey was going to play last week. But one of the main ones was I was looking at the context clues, looking at the hints on Friday, and he was out there. He wasn't formally practicing, but he had his helmet on and he was out there shaking hands with the guys. He actually even went through the greeting line for the 49ers. So you have to collect information from a lot of different places, and then you have to use context clues. And I think that Trent Williams, especially with his helmet on today, he is going to be motivated to get on out there on Sunday and make amends for what wasn't a good pass blocking performance in week one for the 49ers. Trent, too, you got to remember, this guy's 37 years old. He didn't play the preseason games. They're trying to preserve his body, and he does that automatically every Wednesday with the vet day at practice alongside a lot of the other 49ers really experienced players. But if there's anything that Trent Williams ever needs to tend to physically, he is probably going to err on the side of not practicing. And right now, practice is not what Trent Williams needs. He needs game reps to fully knock off the rust that very clearly, I think, was apparent in pass protection when he gave up those 6 pressures. It was the most pressures that he gave up or had given up since 2018, back when he was with Washington. But as you know, Kyle Shanahan and this outside zone scheme requires linemen to be blocking together in ultimate harmony. And I'm talking about the run game right now, but the pass game too. I mean, everything is built off of the other phase of the game, right? So pass depends on run depends on pass. The bottom line is that there's a tremendous amount of cohesion required, especially on the road as an offensive line, because snap counts there on the road are going to be silent, and opposing defenses can sometimes tee off on you in ways they can't at home. You have to be on your game timing wise, and any little bit of rust, first off, it can't be worked off in practice for game day performance, but any bit of rust is really going to be exposed in a loud road environment. And I think that Trent is working his way back into things. This is going to be another difficult environment for the 49ers on Sunday in New Orleans. It's an old school dome. It gets loud in there, crazy history in there. There was once a fire up in the rafters when the 49ers and the Saints played in 1991. A big fire. You go watch it. There's a video on it. This is one of the wild things that happened in that season. While the game was being played, the fire was burning. I'm pretty sure here in the year 2025, they wouldn't have let the game continue. Worker at the Superdome walked along one of the catwalks to go try to put the fire out. He was using like a burlap sack to try to smack the fire, choke off the oxygen, and put it out. And it looked like he had been successful until like part of the roof or maybe part of the sack fell down onto the playing surface while the teams were lining up to kick a field goal. Well, I think it was either the Saints or the 49ers who had the football at the time, but this was the second half of the game, and then part of the field burned because like this flaming piece of burlap sack or part of the roof, I don't know what it was, fell down on the field, burned part of the artificial turf, and obviously at that point they had to delay the game, and they finally got everything fixed. They got the fire up at the top figured out, and that was just the first delay at the Superdome for the 49ers. They would have one a good 21, 22 years later when the lights went out at the Super Bowl. That one probably worked in the 49ers' favor. They lost that 1991 game to the Saints. I think that was Steve Bono was starting, backup quarterback for third string quarterback for the 49ers in 1991. There, of course, have been happier moments for San Francisco in the Louisiana Superdome. 2020 was not one of them. Nick Mullen started that game, and the 49ers did not win it. But the 49ers did go into New Orleans in 2019. And just like this time, they had a quarterback wearing the number 10. And it went very, very well for the 49ers in 2019. They put up 48 points. Jimmy Garoppolo outdueled Drew Brees. 48-46 was the final score. Mac Jones also wears the number 10. He's going to be starting for the 49ers on Sunday against Spencer Rattler. Robert Saleh today at his press conference was very complimentary of Spencer Rattler, but we know that defensive coordinators often try to pump up who they're about to play a little bit, butter them up before you send the pass rush after them. Rattler, so far in his NFL career, has not been very good. This is 7 games over his NFL career. We don't like red, or at least quarterbacks or whoever is on the chart doesn't like red. The 49ers might like seeing the red before they're about to face the Saints. But Rattler has been near the very bottom of the pile as far as quarterback efficiency goes. I mean, 1.4% on the percentile for EPA per play. That means that a good 98.6% of quarterbacks have been more efficient than Spencer Rattler. I get it. The sample is still small. I do think that he showed some improvement last week. They did give the Arizona Cardinals all they could handle. I mean, this came down to the very last play, really offensively for the Saints. And on the second to last play, Spencer Rattler had his big tight end, Jauan Johnson, in the seam, threw him a good pass, and it was 20-13 at the time. And Johnson went up to try to get it. It was in a crowd, double coverage, and it looked like he had it. The announcers thought that he had it, and then he couldn't come down with it. He couldn't hold on to the football. So credit to Spencer Rattler. The stats have not been good for him over the course of his career, but it's a short career still, and I thought that he was much better in week 1 of this season than in his 6 games in 2024. Mac Jones, meanwhile, has been a rather pedestrian quarterback so far. So really an ideal quarterback too. As you can see, the EPA per play right around 0, which is 51st percentile, which means he's been better than 51% of quarterbacks. The accuracy has been a little bit above average, and yeah, you could see that nothing really stands out. Maybe one good stat here is that his bad throw percentage, 15.5%, is on the slightly lower end of the scale. 16% or so would be NFL average, so it's not much lower, but worth noting that Mac is decently accurate. I think that Mac throws a nice deep ball. We saw in training camp that he really took to Kyle Shanahan's system. He looked a lot more comfortable in camp than he did during the spring program, during OTAs and the offseason program. So take that for whatever it's worth with Mac Jones heading up against this Saints team. Since I last talked to you yesterday, I said that Julian Blackmon, the Saints veteran safety whom they added to improve the middle of the defense, I said he might be hurt, might be out of this game. That has been confirmed. Julian Blackmon is going to have to undergo season-ending shoulder surgery. So that's a big, big blow to the Saints. They signed 2 safeties this offseason, Blackmon and Justin Reed, the former Kansas City Chief. And now they're down Blackmon. They're going to have to go to a younger player at that position. This is a defense that I think has a little bit of juice as far as potential pass rushing goes, but the run defense has been a huge problem for the Saints. You go back to last year where it was very, very bad, second worst in the NFL, and losing Julian Blackmon is not going to help any phase of this defense. He was one of the veteran leaders. You know, safeties, they're communication conduits of the defense. Safeties are guys who are counted on because they could see everybody in front of them, especially if a guy's dropping back into a high look, a single high or a 2 high look. He could see the other players on defense in front of him. So, you know, the linebacker might be the guy with the radio in his helmet, the mic, but the safeties are often counted on to be more the communicator. Like the linebacker has the call, but the safety is the director back there. And Julian Blackmon and Justin Reed are both very experienced players, and I think that gave the New Orleans defense some added gravitas entering this season. Blackmon had an immediate impact if you watch the tape against the Cardinals, and now he's going to have season-ending shoulder surgery. So that is a break for the 49ers, who are going to be missing for sure. They're going to be missing their quarterback, Brock Purdy, and their tight end, George Kittle. Those are both huge losses, obviously, for the 49ers. And I would guess, because there is no probable designation, I would guess that Trent Williams tomorrow is listed as questionable when the final injury report comes out. And I would guess that Jauan Jennings is listed as questionable. So theoretically, the 49ers could also be down Williams and Jennings, although I would say that it seems to be trending toward Williams and Jennings. Based on all the information that I've gathered, it seems to be trending toward them playing. But obviously, things can change in the NFL. A lot of this is contingent on how they feel leading up closer to the game. I mean, they're doing work on their bodies beyond tomorrow's practice, beyond Friday. There's a flight to New Orleans, which is a long one, which is a 4+ hour flight that these players have to absorb well. And then, of course, there is the actual game morning, where sometimes these decisions come down all the way to the wire. But for sure, no Purdy, no Kittle against the Saints defense. Again, I'm going to hammer this home when we talk about Mac Jones. And yeah, I opened this with Jauan Jennings, and let's stay on that topic, because I think this is just tremendously poetic. Go back to this game at the Louisiana Superdome. You know who scored a big-time touchdown late for San Francisco against the Saints? Kendrick Bourne in the fourth quarter for the 49ers. I actually asked Kendrick about it yesterday, and he said it was one of his best memories as a 49er. Best one was the Super Bowl, and just the build-up to all that, because he made it to a Super Bowl. It's a big accomplishment for any football player, for any athlete, really. But that's a pinnacle, though, for an NFL guy, right? But that game against New Orleans in 2019 featured Kendrick Bourne as the 49ers' third wide receiver. He made a lot of plays in that 2019 season, but I almost saw his performance against the Saints that afternoon as a breakout of sorts. And obviously, a couple years later, Jauan Jennings was the 49ers' number 3 wideout, and Kendrick Bourne had signed a fairly valuable contract to be the top 2 receiver for the New England Patriots. Now Kendrick is back. We're talking about Jennings' injury status. If Jennings does play, you'll have both Kendrick Bourne and Jauan Jennings on the field during a game at the same time. It didn't happen in 2020 because Jauan Jennings was on the practice squad that year. So Jennings was Bourne's replacement, but how cool would it be? What a full circle moment it would be if the replaced joined the replacement, if Bourne joined Jennings on the field, where we did see this offensive explosion for the 49ers. Who knows? Maybe this is Jimmy Garoppolo throwing to Kendrick Bourne for that touchdown. Although I believe Jimmy was really pressured on the play where he found Kendrick. I think it was a little bit of a scramble drill. I think he was moving around a little bit behind the line of scrimmage. So I just think that whole, and it's a triumvirate now too. Don't forget that while Kendrick Bourne was in New England, Mac Jones was his quarterback at the start. His most successful time in New England was with number 10, Mac Jones, as a quarterback. So now you're going to go back to the Superdome, back to number 10, not this number 10, but to Mac Jones, throwing to Kendrick Bourne, his former teammate in New England. And it's been Mac who's been helping Kendrick Bourne learn the new 49ers playbook, because Kendrick has been gone for several years. So stuff has evolved. Nothing ever stays static in the NFL. So I just think it's this really, really cool trio. It's a trio story, right? You've got Mac Jones, Kendrick Bourne, Jauan Jennings, and we're following all 3 of those guys closely this week. Really, really neat stuff. Today, Nick Wagoner reported in the locker room that Colton McKivitz was talking about his contract and about really wanting guarantees in his deal. And apparently that was something that pushed his deal over the top. I will say that John Lynch on KMBR this morning mentioned that Colton McKivitz, the 49ers were pleasantly surprised that on Saturday night, right before they kicked off the season against the Seahawks. McKivitz and his camp came to them and said they're accepting whatever offer the 49ers had on the table, but that Colton just wanted to sleep on it to make sure that his decision was solidified. And then the very next morning, right before the 49ers did take on the Seahawks, Colton McKivitz did sign the extension, 3 years, $45 million total possible value. That is $15 million APY, $27 million guaranteed. I'm working on a contract breakdown right now. I think that John Lynch's reaction today tells you everything. If the 49ers were pleasantly surprised, that means that Colton McKivitz came ready to play ball with a team-friendly deal. The 49ers had a budget. They did not want to go over it, and they had the offer out to Colton McKivitz and essentially maybe even put a deadline on it, saying they didn't want to work on anything over the course of the season, so it wouldn't be a distraction. And the deadline was the date of the season opener, week 1. And at 10 p.m. on Saturday night, Colton's camp came to the 49ers and said, we accept the offer. Lynch today said that it was a nice surprise for San Francisco on the night before the game because Colton wants to be in the Bay Area. This is such a cool story, I think, from a community perspective, too. Colton is born in Ohio, went to West Virginia, and has fallen in love with this area to the point where he worked out over the course of this past offseason 5 times a week in the city of San Francisco. I wrote the whole story going up the hills in San Francisco, it was Telegraph Hills, Kearney, and Vallejo. And Kearney has a 30.3% grade. So it's quite the good spot to work out. He knows the mayor, Daniel Lurie of San Francisco. If this city right now obviously needs a boost, and 49ers players aren't generally in a great position to bring it because they're based in Santa Clara. But Colton McKivitz said, I've got a great natural training aid for me in the city of San Francisco, and it is some of the most famous hills in the world. Some of the most iconic grades that you have on this planet Earth are in San Francisco. We got to get him to do Lombard Street next off season, but that's going to be a little too touristy probably. You'd probably have to get out there at around 5 a.m. Might still be dark at the time. But he embraced the city. He's embraced the area. He was willing to take less now than he probably would be eligible to make next off season. Of course, taking money now was a safer bet. There would have been risk involved in waiting because anybody can get hurt at any given time. So I think that it's a prudent thing. Today, Nick shared his quote. Nick Wagner shared his quote, and Colton said, this is life-changing money for my family, regardless if it's a little bit lower or a little bit higher. So I think that this was essentially a really mature deal on Colton McKivitz's part to understand that, the team doesn't have as much flexibility as a bad team that hasn't been spending money. The 49ers have been in the top 5 of spend, and they have to find a way to stay under the salary cap, given all the A-list contracts they've given out. So the 49ers were like, this is where we have to be position-wise. And Colton McKivitz said, well, I also want security for my family now before we head into this season. And a pragmatic deal was struck. $27 million guaranteed, $15 million per year. APY is not everything, right? I always emphasize that APY is a vanity number. Sometimes the guarantees are more and should be more important to players. And that is what Colton McKivitz said today. So let's talk about 49ers and the Saints. Speaking of McKivitz, he's going to have to work against, probably some Carl Granderson in this game. He won't have to work against Chase Young. Chase Young is currently hurt. Chase had 65 pressures last year with the Saints, the year after leaving the 49ers. He actually had a decent season rushing the passer, but it was the same old story for the Saints as the 49ers. They couldn't stop the run in 2024, and they weren't able to stop the run in week 1 against Arizona. I think when you talk about Mac Jones, Colton today said that, the 49ers offensive line is going to have to be on point this week because Brock isn't playing. The Mac doesn't have the same mobility as Mac Jones. How are you on point as an offensive line to help out your quarterback? Well, in this system, it's running the football. If your run blocking is good, and obviously Mac has to help out the run game because I guarantee you the Saints are going to come out with 5-man fronts in this game. They ran a lot of 5-2 stuff last week against Arizona. A lot, because if you can't stop the run, you try to cheat against the run. You try to add an extra down defensive lineman against the run. So that, I mean, there's going to be a lot of mass up there to move, and it's hard to move. It's going to be a big challenge. So one thing that has to happen is no matter how bad a run defense is, if they gamble a lot against the run, they'll stop it. Mac is going to have to make some passes in this game without George Kittle. That's tough coming out of some running formation. So that's going to be the first big hurdle that the 49ers have to overcome. But two, once the fronts for New Orleans are amenable for 49ers rushing attempts in this game, then at that point, the 49ers have to execute their run blocking without George Kittle. So a lot of this is going to be on the offensive line. Somebody like Jake Tonjes, if he gets quite a bit of playing time in this game, and we'll see what the 49ers plan is, but they look at him as a pass catcher first and somebody who's still catching up as far as his run blocking goes. He's going to have to be on point. Kyle Juszczyk, he played 15 snaps at tight end last game. He might be playing a good dozen or so more at tight end again with George Kittle out. He's going to have to be on point. 49ers are going to have to identify Demario Davis in this game, the 36-year-old linebacker for the Saints. He was flying around the football last week. I mean, the guy does not look 36. He is still playing at a high level. Two 36-year-olds, Cam Jordan and Demario Davis on this defense. So what can you glean from that? Well, yeah, they're older. Maybe, they'll tire out a little bit more. Maybe they're not as strong as they were in their prime. Somebody like Davis, you would think, okay, maybe he was faster back when he was 29, but he was moving really good this last game. For me, I toss all that physical stuff out the window. If I see him play well on tape, and I saw both Jordan and Davis deliver well last week, I assume that they're going to bring it against the 49ers. What I look at in terms of age, and I think this is a much better way to prepare for a game, is you overestimate them instead of underestimate them. And I think that these guys are both extremely intelligent players because they've seen a decade and a half of NFL football each. I mean, between Jordan at that defensive line position and Demario Davis at linebacker, there's 3 decades of NFL experience, 3 decades worth of seeing NFL offenses, that 30 years of experience. So if they see a little wrinkle that the 49ers line up with, they're probably going to be ready to pounce on it. Like, this is going to be, and on the other side, also, Brandon Staley is the new defensive coordinator. He was in the 49ers building last year as a defensive assistant. So normally when you play outside of your division, there's a little bit more mystery, but I think that there's going to be a good familiarity between what the Saints see from the defensive side from the 49ers offense. I think that Brandon Staley did his homework for San Francisco last year as an assistant to the head coach. And guys like Cam Jordan, guys like Demario Davis have both been around the league for quite some time. So, by the way, as Justin Reed. I know no Julian Blackmon with the shoulder surgery, but Justin Reed has been around for a while, and he's now one of the Saints safeties. If you're looking for a weakness on this Saints defense, they no longer have Paulson Adebo at the cornerback position, and I think that they're a little bit thin at the defensive tackle position. I don't think that they're great inside. So they got Davon Godchaux, the defensive tackle. He had been with the Patriots. He's not a pass rusher at all. He's more of a run stopper for the nose tackle position, but he hadn't been great in that phase of the game. We talked about him as somebody the 49ers might trade for last year when they were desperate to plug up the run defense, and they didn't end up doing it, and it probably wouldn't have improved the 49ers prospects. I mean, they were more than just one defensive tackle away from fixing that defense. But Davon is starting for this Saints team now. They drafted a defensive tackle in Vernon Broughton, but I don't think he's going to get all too much playing time. And then if you go to the cornerback positions, they have replaced Paulson Adebo, the Stanford product. It was a good corner who left in free agency, with Isaac Yiadom, who was with the 49ers last year. So Isaac Yiadom is a starting cornerback for the Saints, and they've got Kool-Aid McKinstry on the other side. Alontae Taylor is the third cornerback for this team. Kool-Aid McKinstry had a couple penalties when I was watching the tape last week, but otherwise I think a good player for New Orleans. I do think that they are hurt by the fact that they are down their veteran starting safety, though, Julian Blackmon. Arizona was able to run against these guys. That has to be the 49ers' goal. That is not just a one-game thing for the 49ers. For the health of their season, they need to start establishing that run game better than they did against Seattle. Brock Purdy put on his Superman cape even while he was hurt with 2 injuries against the Seattle Seahawks without much of a run game. Christian McCaffrey was squeezing out as many yards as he could, but just wasn't blocked for too many. That was a monster of a Seattle defense. That's a really, really good defense that the 49ers faced. So the Saints won't be as good, but the 49ers definitely need to put on a performance that does reflect that. Here's your quarterback comparison. I already showed that a little bit earlier. Maybe Mike will have some other graphics for us on this beautiful Thursday evening. We get really, really good football coming up in about an hour, maybe a little bit less than an hour. I'm really excited. Deebo Samuel and Washington against the Green Bay Packers, who, some people are saying this is the best team in the NFL, Green Bay. I wouldn't go that quick or that far with it that quickly, but they looked really good. They have Micah Parsons now. And, they just kind of kicked the crap out of the Detroit Lions in week 1. Washington also got a win. Deebo went 7 for 77, had a Deebo-like touchdown, one of those runs to the pylon. I can't wait to watch this game. I think Jaden Daniels is better QB than Jordan Love, and we'll see if Washington has built a defense that can make them a balanced team. That's what Washington didn't have last year. I know they made it all the way to the NFC Championship game, but the reason they made it is because Detroit didn't have a defense either. They beat Detroit in the divisional round. Then they ran into a balanced team in the Philadelphia Eagles in the title game, and the Eagles smoked them, and then the Eagles smoked the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl to win it all the next I guess 2 weeks after the NFC Championship game. So now we get to see what kind of strides Adam Peters' team has made with Deebo Samuel in tow, and we'll also get to see exactly how good the Packers might be with Micah Parsons. I'm really, really looking forward to the game that's going to start, I think, in about 45 minutes. So go ahead and drop in your questions. Let's get this stream to over 1,000 people. That would be a lot of fun. That'd be kind of a record for a Thursday afternoon with no real massive breaking news. Just a nice, good 49ers update. Jauan Jennings, Trent Williams working off on the side today at practice. 49ers will practice one more time. Where's everybody going to hang out in New Orleans? I'm not flying in until Saturday, but I can meet up with you guys in New Orleans. Mike is asking me, who do I have, the Packers or the Commanders? Well, first, let me look at what the point spread of this game is. Green Bay -3. That tends to be the line when the odds makers have no idea who's going to win this game because Green Bay's at home, so you just give them the 3-point advantage. It starts at 5:15 Pacific, technically. Green Bay -3. I'm going to go with Washington. I think it's still early in the season, so you're not dealing with the Lambeau Field cold. And I think that Jaden Daniels is special. I think Washington's going to be able to run the football in this game. I can't wait to see their defense, to see if there have been some significant improvements there. I just like Daniels more than I like Jordan Love. I think that any talent evaluator would actually say the same thing. I think that Jordan Love might actually be the weakness of that Green Bay team, especially now that they have a real pass rush with Micah Parsons on board. So I'm going to go Washington tonight. We'll see how that turns out. But Green Bay, it says that they're favored by 3, and I'm going to go Washington. It's about 70 degrees right now in Green Bay, so the cold definitely not an issue. As far as the 49ers go, let's put it this way. I discussed this a little earlier. Where do you guys think that San Francisco is going to be after this month of September, record-wise? They're 1-0 right now. They've got 3 more games. They've got New Orleans, then they've got Arizona at home. Then they have Jacksonville at home. October will begin with a Thursday night game against the Rams. It's going to be a huge one. Where will the 49ers be record-wise entering that game? They're favored against New Orleans. I think that if there's a game that they should win without their starting quarterback and without George Kittle, it's this one. I give them a 60 to 70% chance of winning on Sunday. All right. So if they get the job done, then the 49ers will be 2-0. Then it becomes a question of when does Brock Purdy return? Because he could return as soon as week 3. My gut tells me that it's going to be week 4 when he returns. This is what my gut tells me. I don't have any inside information on this particular injury at this time. So say that you have Mac Jones for 2 weeks right now. Can you beat Arizona at home with Mac Jones and without George Kittle? And then, there could be another injury that pops up for the 49ers, obviously, on Sunday. And we're still waiting on Jauan Jennings and Trent Williams' official status. So that's for this week. We don't know what's going to happen beyond that next week. Would the 49ers be able to squeak out a win in the home opener against Arizona without their starting quarterback, Brock Purdy? Or at the very least, would the 49ers be able to split the homestand? You've got the Cardinals and you've got the Jags. Can you win one of the two? If you can beat New Orleans, a team that I think you're clearly better than even without a couple of your star players, if you could beat New Orleans on Sunday, you could run the football the way that New Orleans has been surrendering ground yardage. If you can do that, you can be 3-1 at the end of September, even if you split the homestand. And I think that'd be a very good start for the 49ers. Now, I think life is all about perspective, right? And about a week ago, I was predicting the 49ers to lose to the Seahawks, and I was wrong there. I thought that I didn't realize the 49ers defense would be as up to the task as they were in week 1. And, I said, I think this 49ers team will start the season 3-3. It's still very possible, by the way, that they start 3-3. But if they start 3-1 after September, they'll be in a very good position to avoid 3-3. 3-2 probably would be not the worst case scenario, but the likely worst case scenario in that case. But so much of it hinges on this week. You've got to win the games that are considered gimmies, right? And I think that this game against the New Orleans Saints, there's no gimme in the NFL, but this is as weak of an opponent as the 49ers might see all year long. Robert Saleh had some nice things to say about Spencer Rattler today, but I showed you the stats on Spencer Rattler, and I do think he's gotten better year 1 to year 2 after he started those 6 games or played those 6 games last year. But at the end of the day, that's not a good resume. They put up 13 points. I don't care that Jauan Johnson dropped a pass there at the very end. He did drop it, and they didn't produce, and that's the bottom line. I think that New Orleans is a whole heck of a lot to prove. I get that the 49ers defense is still young, and I was saying earlier this week that you can't, if you're the 49ers, you can't enter this game with a 2023 like overconfidence. Regardless of the quarterback injury, you can't assume that your roster is just superior to everybody else's like it had been for a few years, because even the great performance of week 1 from the defense shouldn't extinguish the worry about growing pains that will come. Robert Saleh had a funny story today. He said that on Monday he had a nightmare. This is the Monday leading up to the Seattle game, so last week, and the nightmare was that the Seahawks scored 37 points against the 49ers. His nightmare ended up being off by 24 points. The Seahawks scored only 13. He said this week he's having nightmares that New Orleans is going to score 50 against the 49ers. I think that's the right mentality to have. And as long as Saleh is imparting that mentality on the team, like, you have to be scared to be embarrassed in the NFL. Like, you have to constantly be working, because if you ever let your guard down in this league, even the worst team, the worst opponent will embarrass you, will put up 30 to 40 points against you. If there's a no-show in this league, the very worst team has the best players from college football, and they're now pros. So they're better than they were in college, and they will embarrass you. So the 49ers need to be locked in like Robert Saleh's locked in, and I think last week they were. I think that there was an embarrassment of riches on this team for a couple of those years, 2022 and 2023, to where they could sleepwalk their way through some games and still win them, maybe even win them by more than a score in some cases. I don't think that's the case anymore. The 49ers, they're promising, they're young, they're fast, they're developing, but they have to be locked in on a week in, week out basis. And that this is going to be really important given the kind of the pivot point that this game represents with the homestand coming up after, and of course the Rams in week 5. All right, I promised I would answer some questions. Let's do it. What do I think of Pinheiro? Well, he's got an 88.1% make rate over the course of his career, which is number 4 all time. I think with kickers, it's simple. You either make or you miss. And Eddie Pinheiro has made at an extremely high rate. I think they call him Eddie Dinero. I think that's the nickname. So it's gone from Money Moody to Eddie Dinero. We're just changing the language of the word currency in this case. Malik says that Arizona will be tough. Yeah, but that's a week away. First, the 49ers have to figure out to get a win here against the New Orleans Saints. And if you do that, you're 2-0 entering the game against Arizona. And to be honest, you've got a mulligan, right? I mean, if you lose against Arizona, you're 2-1. Big deal. Move on, beat Jacksonville, you're 3-1, and you're sitting pretty entering the month of October. So I think that this is a really, really big game for the 49ers to get that 2-0 cushion. What do I think will happen with Ben Bartch this season? I hope he doesn't get hurt. I mean, injuries have been a problem for him in the past. I think if he stays healthy, I think that he's a good player for the 49ers. He showed that in limited time last year, and I just really hope that Ben, and we'll knock on wood, I really hope that Ben has a chance to, for over an extended time, to show off his skill set. What do I think of the 49ers tight end position? Well, George Kittle's the best in the game, and they don't have him right now. Jake Tonjes is a better receiver than he is a blocker. They're working on the blocking aspect, but he's a really, really good athlete. Luke Farrell's a blocker more than a receiver, but he had to do a little receiving on that 4th down the last game after Kittle went out. They're going to elevate Braden Willis from the practice squad, and they just signed Messiah Swinson, who's like he's good. He's like a backup to Luke Farrell, because he's a Y tight end. He's a blocking tight end. He's 6'7", 6'7.5", kind of like Levine Toilolo. So is the tight end group good enough to run a ton of 12, 22 personnel, 2 tight end personnel this week? I don't know. Kyle Juszczyk might have to augment it again, which is fine because the 49ers love running that cross-positional adaptability with Juszczyk and with everybody, basically. Guys like Kittle can go into the backfield, and the tight ends like Tonjes and Willis have moved down the fullback. So the 49ers go for adaptability, and that can help bolster the tight end room in a short period. Remember that Juszczyk had 15 snaps as an inline tight end on Sunday against the Seahawks. Jordan James doesn't need to be elevated. Jordan James is on the 53-man roster. He's not on the practice squad. Now, will he be active is probably the question I'm guessing that you're wanting to ask here. He's finally fully healthy and cleared to go. Whether or not he's active is going to depend on James versus Guerendo, whom the 49ers are most comfortable with on Sunday. But for the time being, we know that James is healthy from the broken finger, and we'll see if he is indeed active for the 49ers on Sunday. Can the 49ers utilize Adrian Martinez like the Saints utilized Taysom Hill? Well, the problem is that Adrian is right now on the practice squad, so I don't think that you'd build in any kind of full-time game day role until he's on the 53-man roster. That being said, I would expect them to elevate Adrian Martinez for the game on Sunday, but I don't know if you're going to be giving him packages in the offense like the Saints give Taysom Hill, who's hurt right now, by the way, so no Taysom as we speak. But I don't think the 49ers would be giving Adrian Martinez packages in a game where he could be a snap away from coming in as the quarterback. He's going to have all of his focus on that QB2 job. They decided not to sign Mike White, at least for now. He worked out for them earlier this week, the veteran Mike White, who's been in the system with the Jets and with Miami before. So it looks like all signs point to Adrian Martinez, 559 zone, born in Hanford, Clovis West High School. Shout out to all those people. But all signs point to him being the backup for Mac Jones in this game. Will Nick Martin be active soon? We'll see. I mean, if the 49ers continue playing well defensively and guys ahead of him don't let up, then no. If an injury happens or he usurps somebody on the depth chart, then yes. But he can develop this year. There's no acute need at this very moment for Nick Martin, which is good because he's got a lot of potential, but there's also a lot of developmental work to do on his game for the sake of consistency. I don't know how many snaps ballpark for Bourne. I really don't. I think they're determining that right now based on how quickly he's picking up the playbook and how good of shape he's in. He was dealing with a foot injury throughout training camp. Didn't play in the preseason for the Patriots, and they cut him. So I don't exactly know where he's at. We'll see exactly where Jauan Jennings is at come Sunday and where big number 84, Kendrick Bourne, is at out on that field. What's going on with Jair Brown? Well, he's behind two other safeties on the depth chart. 49ers are going with fast safeties now, like really fast guys, and Marquise Siegel and Jason Pinnock. Of course, Mac Jones could win. You are correct. I mean, Mac is the 49ers. Look, the 49ers are the better quarterback in this game. Like, point blank. This is the comparison between Mac Jones and Spencer Rattler. If you had Brock Purdy in there, then almost everything would be green here, dark green. For Jones, it's right in the middle, mediocre stats, but that's why he's a quarterback too right now. He's trying to rehabilitate his career so that maybe he can start again, just like Sam Darnold rehabilitated his career with the 49ers. But I think that, of course, San Francisco can win since they do have a better QB2 than the Saints have a QB1. I cannot give you my prediction yet because my prediction does not come out until Friday or Saturday. So that's going to be coming soon. But I think you guys can just use logic. I'm sure you've listened to me over this show, maybe over some other shows. You probably can guess what the predicted winner is going to be. Mac Jones, the Kendrick Bourne, the clam chowder connection. Well, because they've been in both of the clam chowder cities, right? Like Boston, obviously, and San Francisco. It's like bread bowl clam chowder. So yeah, New England style clam chowder. That's what I have to eat this week. I need to swing by I didn't make it to Los Gatos today, but I need to swing by Los Gatos at some point, maybe tomorrow, in honor of Jake Tonjes. And then before I leave to New Orleans, got to get some clam chowder before we get a beignet stream from New Orleans on Saturday. Mac Jones also played with Luke Farrell on Jacksonville. It's a good call out. I got the text right now from Mike. 49ers love those Jags players this year. Kyle, I think they liked Mac Jones in that 2021 draft, but they didn't want him at least more than Trey Lance. They wanted Trey Lance more than Mac Jones. I think Mac is a quarterback who they believe can get the ball out on time, and that's what matters most in a Shanahan offense if you have a run game. If you have a run game that kind of eases some pressure off of the QB, especially since Mac runs like Forrest Gump. That's Forrest Gump before he turned into an All-American running back at Alabama. Mac himself has said that. Mac is not fast. Purdy moves really, really quickly in those first 10 yards. Changes the dynamics of plays. I don't think Mac can really do that. So 49ers need to run and protect him. And if they can, then he's going to be able to distribute the football really efficiently. That's what he did in training camp, and I would expect more of that to happen in this game. So this is interesting. You're saying Mac could be playing for his next contract with another team in the next few weeks. Remember that he's under contract with the 49ers for 2 years. That gives the 49ers some significant upside here. If Mac plays really well over the next couple weeks, he could be somebody that fetches something in the trade market for San Francisco over the course of the offseason, like something significant in the trade market. So I think the fact that they got him on a 2-year deal is a nice big win for the 49ers. Like quarterbacks, especially competent ones, are in high demand around this league. So the fact that San Francisco has Mac Jones under contract through 2026 is definitely something that we should pay attention to. Look, SF Data Niners they have their big preview of 49ers and Saints. Now, I think this only includes the first week of the season, but that's okay. Sample is not going to be big yet, but SF Data Niners does a really good job. So this is the 49ers offense against the New Orleans defense. 49ers played a good game offensively. The Saints, as you could tell, they were just basically average, a little bit below average up and down the efficiency spectrum against the Cardinals. 49ers were very good passing, number 4 in week 1. Purdy had an awesome game in that regard, but they did not run efficiently. That's why I keep on saying the 49ers need to be better running the football. The Saints weren't good running defense. They were number 20, gave up the 154 yards to the Cardinals. And then if you go to the defensive side of the ball, the 49ers were very good. The Saints offense was it was mediocre. Then there's the great equalizer, though. You know, everything that I'm talking about can be ruined in the snap of a finger if the 49ers continue to play abysmal special teams. Abysmal special teams. So the 49ers definitely need to get this up to at least number 20. They can't be number 32, as you could see here in special teams. All right, there's your update. Time for some football. We're ready for it. Commanders and the Packers. I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to go get some food, go do what you need to before this game starts. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you after the game.